That's right. It's definitely the continuation of the I Love Ann show. And I have one of my favorite talk show hosts on the air with us. Happen to know him. He's a big guy. That's right. It's the one and only Jim Bohannon. How you doing today, Jim?
How can I possibly live up to that?
You do it every night and every morning right here on WCRS.
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact.
You were having quite a conversation last night with someone that wrote a book talking about Van Halen and all the wild things that were going on.
Yeah, Bo Phillips is his name, and he's been big in music, radio, and television. And he wrote this wonderful book called "How I Killed Pink Floyd's Pig."
Well, you were all having a good time there talking about the past. You know, it's fun to look back at things that happened in the past and kind of look at how they would play in today's world, isn't it?
Well, it's true. Things change. Here's a little perspective builder for you right here. Jean-Benet Ramsey, remember the murdered beauty queen, little girl? She would have been 24 today.
Wow. Doesn't seem like that long ago, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Wow. Well, there are so many things happening in our world right now. Jim, I was just wondering your take on the Major General that got shot and killed at Qatar yesterday, and how do you think something like that could happen? I was talking to Jeff last night. Jeff was telling me when he was in Vietnam, he was attached with a MAG group, and he never trusted anybody that he was training. And he said he used to have one guy that was always standing back like 15 or 20 yards, and he'd tell him, anybody pick up a gun or, go to shoot or something, he's going to shoot you. And I think what he said was, he said if it was a mistake, they would have to let God sort it out.
Well, those were similar situations. I was in Vietnam, too, and you try to build up the local army, but sometimes you wind up with bad apples in the midst, and there are people there who are trying to disrupt, be it the Taliban today or the Viet Cong back then, and it happens. And I'm certainly sorry it happened to this Major General, but I guess my question would be, why doesn't it happen more often, really? I guess I'm a cynic.
Yeah. Well, doing what you do, Jim, it's not unbelievable that you are that way. The country, the state of our country, makes me very jaded and makes me wonder. I can't believe sometimes that I feel as depressed as I do about how things are going.
Well, they're not going as they ought to, but I mean, we survive. I mean, we're still here, and that's the important thing. We're still here. Through all of the mistakes that we make, we are still here. We haven't bankrupted the country yet. We haven't sold it down the river to some foreign country. Not yet. We aren't doing right things, but it's such an essentially strong country that we're still here.
Yeah, we are still here. But one of the things that has surprised me, I don't know about you, is how many incumbents, particularly on the Republican side in the Senate races, have won. Aren't you a little surprised that, we talk all the time about throwing the bums out and everything, and still we're saying...
We talk about it, but the fact of the matter is that the people who are the most vocal are the people who are angry, and the fact is that most people like their member of Congress just fine. You go back to 1994 when it was a throw the bums out year, and we threw out maybe 10% as opposed to the usual 2 or 3%. People aren't unhappy with Congress. They're unhappy with the people that other people elect to Congress. Mostly, we like who we send to Congress pretty well.
Yeah, well, at least we know them, right?
We do. I mean, the fact that they were winners before indicates that we pretty much like them, or they wouldn't have won in the first place. So it's not surprising to me that incumbents win. They were popular to begin with.
Do you think we'll ever get to a point where we have term limits? There's all this talk.
Well, we can have. A number of states have them. The only way you can do it at the federal level is with a constitutional amendment. And, of course, technically speaking, we have term limits now. They're called elections. And the fact is, we like the people we have, and we keep them. But if somebody wanted to propose a constitutional amendment, obviously a term limits amendment would have to go through a constitutional convention followed by state ratification, because Congress is never going to vote for a constitutional amendment that limits their time on Capitol Hill. But you could use the constitutional convention method to nominate this, and then if 38 state legislatures approved it, and they would rush it through, because that means all these House and Senate seats would open up for them. So it could happen, but you just couldn't go through Congress to start the ball rolling.
Sure. Well, I talked to Mick Mulvaney down here, had put forth a bill on this, and it never really went anywhere, and we've heard of others that put forth the bill, but it never really goes anywhere. So I just think that it would be interesting if they had to give it up and they had to come back and live under some of the laws that they have made.
Well, there is a proposed constitutional amendment that says that Congress may pass no law that doesn't equally apply to the public and to members of Congress, and likewise they can pass no law that applies to members of Congress that doesn't apply equally to the public. That's what you need is an amendment that sees to it that Congress cannot pass exemptions for themselves. That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
If Obamacare is so good for all of us, then it should be so good for them too.
Yeah, exactly. So when we're talking about, I wanted to talk a little bit more. What did you think, though, about Lindsey Graham? There was so much talk about him not making it, or maybe there would have been a runoff. I always thought he would end up with it, but he crushed the competition. I mean, we did have 7 others running, but what did you think about that?
I was not surprised at all. Lindsey's been around for a long time. He's been very popular. He has a huge war chest to raise advertising. The fact that a few people don't like him, and again, these are the people who call into talk shows. That doesn't make them good or bad. It just means they're there. But they're the ones who are unhappy. The people who are happy the way things are the ones who don't call in. So no, it didn't surprise me at all. For an incumbent of his stature to be turned out, that would have been a huge upset. I would have been very surprised if Lindsey had lost.
Well, I'll just be perfectly frank, Jim. I was hoping that at least there would be a runoff, and then I would get some more of that war chest.
Well, that's true. That's one thing about broadcasters. We do benefit from all of those campaigns because they spend money on our stations, don't they, though?
Absolutely. Now, I mean, have you been following any of Thomas Ravenel, who's running against Lindsey?
I'm only aware of the name. I know the name is an old South Carolina name in Democratic political circles.
Well,
he'll lose badly. This is a very Republican year in a very Republican state, so I'm not sure what Lindsey Graham would have to do to lose that race.
Well, he's, he can't even vote for himself. He's a convicted felon.
What do you think this is, Chicago?
Yes, exactly. And on top of that, he's on a reality show. I think it's called Southern Charm or something. He decided to stay on the show to expand his platform. He was the former lieutenant governor for South Carolina that got put in the slammer for cocaine usage.
Well, that tells you a lot right there. No Democrat who was serious thought that they could beat Lindsey, so they weren't going to give up a safe position to run against him.
Well, he's running as a Republican. He's an independent Republican. He's got 10,000 names.
So what he got petitioned onto the ballot.
Yes, exactly.
I see. He's running as an independent.
Right.
I see.
Yes.
But even the Democrats don't have, I don't think, a serious candidate running against Lindsey. Do they?
No. Tim Scott has
I mean, Ravenel's running because it's an ego project for him.
Exactly. So I just thought that was interesting. But now let's move on to the VA. And what is your take on this new VA bill? I had a doctor on yesterday who actually used to work for the VA, and she's a president of the American Physicians Group. Anyways, she says that just throwing more money at it isn't going to fix the problem.
Well, it certainly is a good place to start. Some government problems can't be solved by throwing money at it. This is one problem where there isn't enough money because we've had more casualties than we ever budgeted for. So this is one case where you need more money, and it's one case where we can't get cheap because our veterans deserve better than that. But some of the big things in this bill that make it really worthwhile is that you would now be able to get out of the VA system. If, for example, you had been put on a waiting list and you waited so long, you could now just simply say, the heck with this, I'll get a private sector care and I'll get reimbursed for that. Or if you live, more than a certain distance away from a VA center,
sure,
then you're allowed to go and get private care, which is the way it ought to be. There are very few things that need to be done specifically by a veterans hospital that a private facility couldn't accomplish. So I think that the bill is a good bill. It's not perfect, but I can't think of anything about it that I think is bad.
I think one of the best parts of the bill is that the bill would allow the VA secretary to fire or demote senior executives for poor performance and misconduct.
And the first thing, of course, that I thought, and I'm sure a lot of people thought, was they can't do that now, and this law was passed. It doesn't apply to every other department. Do we have to now pass a separate law that says you can fire such people from the departments of agriculture and defense and justice,
IRS,
and interior, and all the rest of those? I mean, obviously, there should be a sweeping law that covers every single one of those people. Now, I knew that if you were one of the worker drones in the bureaucracy covered by the union, that firing you is almost impossible. But I thought the high-level people, the political appointees, could be fired. I wouldn't know where they had that kind of protection.
Yeah. Well, that's, of course, the biggest thing that they're all worried about is that now this will go on to all these other departments. I think it's great.
Well, it is great. It's long overdue.
Yeah. So, and what do you think, though, about do you think we should build more, they're talking about in this bill, build more facilities, or should we concentrate more on putting them into private practice?
I don't see any need to build any more VA facilities. For one thing, the track record has been so terrible, and obviously the culture within the VA is not good. I hope that they're going to be reforming it and changing it. But no, send these veterans to private facilities. I think the only reason that a veteran could ever go to a VA facility is if there is something at the VA facility that no private hospital offers. Maybe, for example, the traumatic brain injuries. Certainly, people who've been in the military disproportionately suffer from that because of IEDs and bullet wounds and the like. But other than that, no, I think the vast majority of them should be going to the private sector.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we probably would save money in the long run. So, and now I want to ask you about the IRS. What's your take on this? What are you thinking?
What particular aspect of it
do
you have in mind?
How about the latest thing with the churches? And they're going to start, let's see, some of the speak out there is that we're going to have IRS people sitting in the church pews checking out what the pastors are saying.
Oh, well, that's not going to go very far, I don't really think. Again, that's just more baggage that is going to be hung around the necks of every Democratic candidate out there. This administration is just producing a litany of things that Democratic candidates are going to have to carry on their back. Every time something like that happens, it's another seat in Congress and in the Senate that will go towards the Republicans, making sure that this doesn't happen again. So even that has its upside. It'll anger people just that much more to make them go vote.
And what do you think about this impeachment speak that we have going on out there? What do you think about that for the president?
That's a really bad idea. Not that this president hasn't committed impeachable offenses. I believe he has. But number one, you're never going to convict him. You might get an impeachment of the House, which is simply where the one is accused. This Senate will never, ever convict him. All you're going to do is rile up the Democratic Party base and get them to turn out and vote. Right now, they're not motivated to vote. You get them to vote, and the Republicans might not gain control of the Senate after all. And plus, if you convicted him and you kicked him out of office, we'd then have an incumbent President Joe Biden who'd be eligible to run for re-election in 2016. Impeachment is just the kind of thing that it's a feel-good kind of thing. But practically, it's a really dumb idea. That there are two things that Republicans can do right now. One, they can get control of both houses of Congress. And two, they can elect a president in 2016. Impeaching anybody is just going to get in the way of that.
Well, what
it's not worth pursuing.
I agree with you, but I just wanted your low-tempered advice on this.
Well, there you go. That's my well-tempered advice.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Now, the last question. Well, I got one short story, but last question. Is the Senate going to be Republican after the November election? Yeah.
Even the Republicans are going to have a hard time blowing this one. And goodness knows if there's a way to. They seem like they'll find a way. But, even the Republicans, I don't think, can find a way to blow this election. They're going to wind up with a majority leader, and they're going to wind up with control of both houses of Congress. But, of course, unless they go through with this Boehner lawsuit and keep the president from trying to rule by executive order, at some point, executive orders, and it's not just Obama, other presidents have done it too, at some point there has to be a limit drawn on executive orders, which should be a very limited option for presidents.
Absolutely, it should. And my final little piece of info for you. Did you hear about the guy who was dressing as a woman up there in Washington, D.C., and was having God, I can't find my story. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. A taxi cab driver. He was wearing a wig, a bra, and he pleads guilty to fleecing customers. You need to be careful.
I heard something about that, but I hadn't heard the whole details until just now. I can tell you that I occasionally use a cab in the District of Columbia. Didn't run across that particular cabbie.
Well, he was wearing a disguise of a woman's wig, a padded bra, and he drove a silver Range Rover SUV, focused on picking up passengers near popular bar and nightclub areas in D.C., including DuPont Circle, Adams Morgan, Foggy Bottom, Chinatown, and Arlington, Virginia. They charged him with 5 counts of fraud, and he had fleeced them of about $200,000.
Whoa, that's a lot of fleecing. He must have been doing that for a long time. I did not hear about it. I have yet to actually have a female cabbie in Washington, or for that matter, just about anywhere else. So I think I would automatically be suspect, especially if they had that 5 o'clock shadow. That would probably be a dead giveaway.
Well, he got over $200,000 between April 2009 and November 2013.
Well, I'm glad they got him.
Absolutely.
Or her, whatever it turns out to be.
Well, I wanted to say thank you for being out there and keeping us company 10 to 1 right here on WCRS and starting our day out 6 to 7 with all the interesting news and tidbits that you find out there.
Well, we're happy to be the lead-in for your morning show. Always a pleasure, Ann.
Well, we'll look forward to having you in studio, maybe in September.
Well, we'll do the best we can. We absolutely will.
All right. Thanks so much for calling, Jim.
Okay, thank you, Ann.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.